Hi everyone, my name is Charlotte Harden, and this is my portfolio presentation for admission into the Credential program for art teaching at Cal State Fullerton. A little about me, I am currently earning my BFA in art education at Cal State Fullerton, and I was a volunteer art instructor for the Scouts of America for 1 year in 2025. And here I have a few pictures of me helping the Scouts earn their art merit badges. We did some sculpture workshops as well as some introduction to art workshops. So I was able to present the elements of art to them and then also walk around and answer questions and help them in their work. And I also wanted to share a little about my teaching philosophy. So my goal is to provide students with the tools to reach their fullest artistic potential and discover the creativity within themselves. I also consider it important to teach about artists and artistic methods of the past to inform their own style. My subject area includes painting, drawing, sculpture, crafts, and more, though I'm always trying to add new skills to my toolbox. My goals for my future art students are to develop their appreciation for the creative process, to learn how to express themselves through art, and to gain a knowledge of basic and complex art techniques that they can apply to their own artworks. First off, I wanted to show some examples of my printmaking experience. I really liked to lean into illustration with my printmaking work. I show elements of line and composition that I would be able to teach to future students. I also consider it really important to be able to tell a story in your artwork. So that is something that I would love to be able to share with my future students, is teaching them not only the importance of the basic elements of design, but also how to express themselves and how to tell a story in their artwork so that other people can understand their perspective. Here is some more printmaking. In these, I'm also mainly exploring elements of line, but also texture, negative and positive space, and also integrating words into artwork. These are some of my oil painting experience. Of course, I would not teach using nude models in a high school classroom, but I wanted to include these to show that I understand human anatomy and that I would be able to teach portraiture to students, and also color theory. I'm able to mix colors and create realistic skin tones. And that is something that I would really love to be able to teach my future students. These are some examples of mixed media. These are a little bit more non-traditional artworks. Um, I think a lot of students or adolescents are very interested in cartoons and pop art, and I think that that is a great way to get them interested in art. And then through those cartoon works or pop art, I could integrate the elements of design, such as light and shadow, color theory, and garner student interest in that way. This is some of my experience with ceramics. I do have experience with wheel throwing. These are some mugs that I was able to create. And I do have a good background in three-dimensional design. So I think that I would be able to teach a ceramics class in the future. This is an example of a charcoal drawing. And some of the things that I think really stand out in this picture are the line work, the light and shadow, the core shadow, highlights, negative and positive space. I also used elements of measuring to create this piece. So I would be able to teach that to students, how to accurately make precise measurements of a prop in order to, or prop or a subject in order to create a realistic and accurate drawing of it. This is an acrylic work that I did, and it also has elements of illustration and storytelling. There are a lot of small patterns and details in it, which I think can help to make the work very engaging. It also has elements of proportion and depth, which is something that I would definitely want to teach my future students. These are some portraits that I've done. The first one is a graphite portrait, and the second one was done using colored pencil. The first portrait is a little bit less precise. It is more of a sort of gesture drawing that I did. The second one, I did actually measure the specific parts of the model's face to accurately portray her in this portrait. And then I was able to use blending techniques with the colored pencils to create a realistic skin tone. I also wanted to include this just to be able to show that I do know human anatomy. Here I have drawn a human skeleton and labeled some different bone names. I think that this would be a good project for more advanced art students to do in order to really get the human figure and anatomy down. So that's something that I would teach in a future advanced classroom. Here are some examples of digital art. I will admit that I am not as experienced with digital art as I would like to be. It is something that I am currently working on because I believe it's an important part of the art world today. I do know basic elements of digital art, so I think it's something that with a little bit more practice, I would be confident in teaching. Now I'd like to move on to a little bit away from my personal work and to some examples of work that I would teach to students in beginning art classrooms to introduce the elements of art and design. So these are some chalk pastel works. I wanted to be able to illustrate the highlights, the core shadows, and blending, gradients, color relationships. And then on the left, I'm showing a lot of texture. It's also a reference to historical impressionist art pieces. So that is, these are two projects that I think would be very helpful to teach in a beginning art classroom. This was to show character design. Again, I think a lot of students nowadays are very interested in character design, and this is a good introduction to digital art without actually having to do digital art, because they are able to make a full design of a character that the student could potentially flesh out into a digitized version in the future. This is another art piece that I would teach in a beginning art classroom in the future. It's an Alebrija paper mache, and it's an imaginative animal. I think it's good or it would be a good project for students to be able to express their creativity and not get too into the details, but just allow their imagination and creativity to really flow. And now I would like to go into my lesson plan, which is a Mexican folk art lesson plan. So first, I would like to show the sample artwork of what my students would be doing. So here I have drawn a cicada using paint markers on a black background. I've also included pattern surrounding it and also within the subject. And I'm using bright colors and patterns, pulling from traditional Mexican folk art. A quick description of this artwork. Students will be creating an artwork of an animal, either real or imagined, in the style of Mexican folk art. Students will use a variety of colorful paint markers on black paper to create their artwork. Students must incorporate patterns and detailed line work into their art. Students will draw on the rich history of Mexican folk art to inform their creative choices in their artwork. I wanted to highlight why I think this lesson is important for students to experience. So I think that learning about cultures in other parts of the world gives students new perspectives and a new appreciation for art styles that they aren't used to. In addition, of the 6.2 million K through 12 students who attend California public schools, just over half are Latino. Not only is it important for Mexican American students to see their culture represented in art lessons, but it is beneficial for students of all cultures to learn the perspectives and values rooted in Mexican folk art. So, consistent with just and equitable inclusion in education, I wanted to be able to show that I will be including artworks from as many different cultures as I can, because not only does it help students from those cultures to feel represented and safe in the classroom, it also adds to the experience of every student in the classroom, because every culture has something new and beneficial to add to the classroom experience. For my lesson hook, when students walk into the room, they will see pieces of Mexican folk art at the front of the classroom, and they will also be presented with a quick slideshow. So in this slideshow, I talk about Mexican art history. This is a yarn painting. I define folk art so that they know what they are supposed to, so that they know what they are creating and kind of the history behind it. I also define some different types of Mexican folk art from a few different cultures within Mexican history. So there's a bead painting, a yarn painting, and an Oaxacan wood carving. I also have some adaptations and modifications for a variety of students. I have an idea to use text-to-speech software to translate my speech into other languages for students in real time so that they don't have to translate themselves or catch up after the fact. And then I would also meet with English learning students after the lesson to make sure they fully understand what they are being asked to do. For students with special needs, I will adjust the project requirements however I see fit based on my specific students in the classroom at that time. To include multimodality, the lesson will be taught using visual aids as well as a vocal presentation by me. All students learn in different ways. Some are more visual, some are more audio. So I believe that it is important to provide a variety of resources for them for learning. This was my presentation. I am incredibly enthusiastic about entering the program and becoming a teacher. I have a passion for art and a passion for working with young people and helping others to reach their fullest potential. I have enjoyed presenting my teaching philosophy, and thank you so much for this opportunity. Goodbye.